and we're going to be leading you through today's agenda. But first, I wanted to start off with why are we here? What are our objectives for our meeting? These are really important because it sort of sets the stage for what we're going to be doing together. So the first one, as the mayor alluded to, is really about strengthening connections and building a team, right? We're going to be talking about a highly functioning public service-oriented team, which is really important as you all are facing some really difficult and pressing challenges in your community. How can you build relationships and build up that teamwork to be able to work together effectively? The second objective is going to be talking about what are the systems and structures that will help support that teamwork, right? So it's part of it is what you all do as individuals, but there are things like your policies and procedures, your rules of procedure, your code of ethics, your core values that can help buttress and support that work as you get into it. So we're going to briefly talk about that today. It's not going to be a main focus, but I think it is important since we asked some questions in the pre-meeting survey on that. And lastly, after lunch, we're going to spend the afternoon kind of getting into the heart of the matter. Your staff will join, your department leaders will join for that portion of the conversation. And it will really be about creating some shared understanding and awareness around what's the future of this amazing community. What's the vision that you all have together that you're working towards? We are not going to be co-creating a vision statement today. We're going to be brainstorming, right? We're going to be getting a lot of ideas out. With the eventual hope that you all as a board will arrive at a conclusion related to that, but today is really about getting ideas and generating. And the last thing that we're going to be doing as part of our afternoon agenda is really getting into a prioritization and an understanding of some of the key issues that you're facing. So we'll be doing some interactive work. The staff will be engaged because they've got some great expertise to bring to the table, but ultimately everything will come back to this group for final direction and decision. In terms of how we're going to spend our time, the majority of our morning is going to be spent on this team of an individual awareness building. Then we're going to have some lunch, and then we're going to get into the vision and some of the prioritization. You have a very general agenda in front of you. We have a very detailed agenda in front of us. So we'll be keeping time. We'll be making sure all voices are heard. So kind of just try to trust the process a little bit as you go through. But we are very flexible. So if we need to adjust, we will, and make sure you all are getting out of this what you need to. So the benefits of having us facilitate is neutrality. At the end of the day, we don't really care which direction you go on an issue. That is up to your direction and leadership. We're here to get you through a good process and make sure that you get to the outcomes that you're looking for. Part of that is managing the process and using some of our, facilitation tools and tricks to make sure that all voices are heard. And it also allows your staff to participate. They don't have to worry about managing the meeting. They can be here, they can listen, they can observe, and that really helps them on their work. And with that, I'm going to turn over to Kasha.
Thank you. Can you click me off? All right, thank you all very much. As Geraldine mentioned, we have a system in place to keep the conversation moving. So to set up that system and make sure we're all on the same page, we have a few meeting methods we want to share. The content presentation will help the discussion move along through some very targeted points that we want to emphasize and introduce you to. There's also going to be a pause for individual reflection. We want you to bring your whole self to this process and your experiences. It's what got you here, and it's what's going to help the town develop. There's going to be small group work that's going to let you learn from each other and reflect on how your colleagues view situations. And then, of course, we'll have large group discussion where we're able to talk through larger issues and prioritize things as a group. To make this happen, of course, we'd like for you to pay attention and withhold judgment. Really take time to reflect, clarify, which is one of my favorite things. A lot of times we assume we know acronyms, first of all, and other processes. So please don't hesitate to slow down the process and ask for clarification along the way. I'm sure anyone here would be open to providing that information. We're going to summarize things you heard to make sure we heard it correctly. You'll see us taking notes on various issues. Again, we want to make sure that what we write down, what we take back with us, is what you truly feel and express. So if you see something's coming down in not the way that you intended, just let us know and we'll adjust that. And then, of course, we want to share. This is an open process. We are recording this for posterity, but this is a space to, you all will have control over that. So it is your decision on what's done with that. So some ground rules: to speak up and show up, to be present and engaged, share your voice. If caffeine is needed, please just let us know and we can make some things happen. Respect in the room, of course, leading with respect and listening like it matters, because it really does. Staying curious, assuming that there's something to learn. I think curiosity is probably what moves conversations forward the easiest, right? If we can just stay curious about things and respect the fact that there are no bad questions. Clarity is kindness. Ask for what you need and check for understanding, as we just mentioned. And support a smooth session. Silence devices and keep comments concise. And then one of my favorite things we do is the parking lot. I don't know if you do it in your own meetings, but it has changed my world. So it is a spot for us to write down issues that might not be part of the specific conversation we're having, but we need to make note of and circle back to before we leave. So this is a spot for us to write those down or to hand off to staff. You're good. You were silencing. I appreciate it.
Actually, I thought that was the silence.
Yeah, no, you're good. I am here for it.
We don't keep score on the ground.
I don't wear that watch.
Yeah. Okay, now we're going to, we have clarification at least. So highly effective public service-oriented teams. Thank you. There are 3 parts to this agenda with the purpose of increasing your awareness of each other as leaders, your preferences, and your styles as individuals. And then we're going to reflect on those and learn how we can build on your uniqueness to create highly effective commission and team. So again, this is about bringing your whole self to the process, bringing your thoughts and views and opinions of those you represent, and then including them in the conversation and using it to move the conversations forward as a group, because that's why you're all here, to learn how to move things together. And we're going to start with a icebreaker. This is my actual crayon box from when I was a child. So please, I was surprised they're all still intact. So if you want to take, you can use pens or a couple crayons if you'd like to pass it on down. I think Crayola was okay in the 90s. There's some rose, yeah, you can pass on the rose art. I won't take any offense. So this exercise is going to let you, again, reflect on your own experiences and then share with each other. You're going to use words, drawings, and symbols to respond to the prompts in the worksheet and complete each quadrant. You will not be graded on presentation. Again, you can use a pen if you feel better doing that. You can use crayons. You can create your own emojis. You'll just have to explain what they are to us. So look at each quadrant and answer the prompts. The first prompt is a person or event who shaped who I am today. That shaped who I am today. A person or event that shaped who I am today. Your second quadrant, my motivation for public service and or serving in elected office. Your third prompt is a fun fact, something that no one in the room knows about you. And your fourth prompt is to write a newspaper headline about Waxhaw in 5 years. So we'll give you a few minutes to work on that. Let us know if you have questions.
Be thinking about how you want to introduce your partner with that fun fact. We'll give you another minute or two, and then we'll go around the table. All right, let's do a little sharing from the group. Mayor's making eye contact with me, so you guys are going to go first. Surprise. So introduce your partner, just take turns and we'll go down the row.
Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and introduce my partner here. This is the incomparable Susanna Wedra. She is a first-generation American, so English is her second language. So when the words don't come to her, just realize she's still trying to pick it up.
If I'm quiet, I might be thinking in
Exactly. Because as we all learn at a young age with our parents, and it's not always the right language. So that was the fun fact. She has always been a person who enjoys serving the community, serving her family, and just helping those around her, which is why she got into this. And then, and her headline was a little more upbeat than mine, and just about people enjoying the small town feel of Waxhaw.
Mayor Robert Murray. And great guy, great on his feet. I mean, the speeches he gives on his feet are amazing. You know, the one-liners are great. So his greatest influence were his parents. Fun fact, he shot a bow in college at the state level, indoor and outdoor, which is good information to know. Also wants to serve. House is quiet now that all the kids have grown up, so it's a good opportunity to continue serving. And his headline was more about a traffic jam in the future, so not as optimistic as mine, but maybe realistic.
Reflecting the weather outside. Very good. Great job.
Can we share the mic?
We got it.
Yeah.
It's on. Okay, so Richard, Commissioner Daunt, he said the person that shaped who he is today and mostly centered around his public life is Stoney Rushing. And Stoney, former county commissioner, and he kind of put it in Richard's brain to look at running for office in Waxhaw because Richard back at around COVID was more focused on county matters, and he developed a friendship with Stoney, and Stoney asked him to take a look at serving in Waxhaw. And his motivation for public service is he's always focused on the honesty and transparency of government, and he feels like he can lend his ear in listening as one of the skills that he can offer, which he's pretty soft-spoken and doesn't talk a lot, but that's why you can tell he's a good listener, and he does listen. and then the newspaper headline, which is not all different than mine, Waxhaw's government, an example for all. And then he can read mine, but mine's not all that different than his.
Yeah, and unfortunately I couldn't think of something that no one in the room knows about me, just because I've gotten to know everyone so well. I feel like there aren't really any secrets.
Let's dig deep.
Yeah.
We'll turn off the recording real quick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah. Well, that I used to drive city buses in New Zealand. That's.
No, we didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You didn't even know that.
I used to have really long hair. I was a bit like Otto from The Simpsons, you know?
I don't know. I've never heard you use the word dude. So as a skater,
Hey, dude. Yeah. I would drive with the earphones in and everything. Yeah. So John said that his economics 501 professor and 9/11 were the people and events that shaped who he is today. And his motivation for public service and serving an elected office was his daughters, giving a voice to frustrated voters, just understanding that people felt like they weren't being listened to. And so John is also a good listener and wants to listen to the public. Something that no one in the room knows about him was that he was hypnotized on live TV. Yeah, I didn't hear about that, but it sounds like an interesting story.
It kind of is interesting, but I'll save it for you. It's not on YouTube. It's a long time ago.
Does the keyword still work? The hypnotism word, the
No,
keyword,
no.
it doesn't work anymore.
No.
His newspaper headline about Waxhaw in 5 years, Waxhaw, a charming and growing community, a shining example of governance. So, yeah, pretty similar sentiment there. We can not only do a good job for the town, but if we do a good enough job, we could be an example to others and inspiration to others.
Yeah, the state kind of still needs it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Great job.
So Dan, in going through ours, there's a lot of similarities. Person or event that shaped who Dan is today was Craig Ferris's dad. As a business leader, taught him self-responsibility. Didn't get to throw the paper out, but you did a recycling job. We went around the neighborhood and he taught you how to make some money. He went and gathered the neighborhood's newspapers and recycled them and bought his first television in doing so. What motivation for public service, serving an elected office? Want to better understand the community and volunteer, and we share that same sentiment, different verbiage, but we both share that. Something in the room, something that you don't know about Dan, I know it because we shared this. I was a high school pitcher and first baseman, and he played in a very competitive school district, Brea Linda, in Orange County, California. Very competitive. So if you make a baseball team in that county, you're a very good player. Write a newspaper headline about Waxhaw in 5 years. Waxhaw, thriving, historic, more than a bedroom community, which I thought was based on our last meeting we had. There's some latitude that we can continue to have that same vision that we want and bring Waxhaw into the future, but keep that bedroom feeling that we've all kind of yearned for. That's Dan.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was great to essentially get to catch up with Mike. It's been a minute since I've gotten to see him. But start with his headline is Waxhaw, a town that values its citizens. And I got to spend a lot of time with Mike out there at the Waxhaw Farmers Market and just talking to folks. And I think that was one of the most important parts. And that's one of the things that I'm very grateful to be able to join this roundtable setting here with everybody. It was a completely different, essentially, flow of conversation. And this is a great, essentially, step forward, in my opinion. And so I'm very grateful for this. for Mike, it was also his father that helped essentially guide and put those cornerstones into his life, and essentially, and then himself now as a dad with a son that's all the way up through college now, graduating, if I remember correct.
Found out we got one more year.
One more year, okay, uno más. But yeah, to be able to take those experiences and essentially laying those foundational pieces in his life, he wanted to take that service, and it was his motivation to essentially volunteer and essentially not just be on the sidelines, but Mike, as a former coach, is essentially wants to be active in his community and shaping it. And so I totally agree with him and concur that, I didn't want to also be on the sidelines. When I moved here, I wanted to better understand the community that I was calling home, that I wanted to raise a family in. And grateful for just the opportunity to have started as a volunteer and now be here amongst you all as a Board of Commissioner. Lastly, not to leave it out, Mike was a lead singer, 80s band. I believe there is a recording, so we'll have to find a way to get a copy of that somehow.
On the phone.
But that's Mike in a nutshell.
We need genres, we need outfits.
Oh, wait, 80s hair? Was it 80s big hair? There we go.
My hair looked like Darth Vader. It wasn't a good look.
I heard pterodactyl club.
If you know, you know.
I know. We'll talk later. No, that was out in California.
Well, thank you all for participating in that. Part of what we're going to be doing this morning is building on the awareness that you all have of each other as individuals, as leaders, as elected officials. And so kind of breaking the ice and getting started with some fun elements of this is our first step into this process. So we're going to switch now to kind of unpacking this idea of a highly effective public service-oriented team. And I rode crew in college. And did you really? So you know that there's probably no better example of how important individual and teamwork is in a crew boat. You literally cannot move in the water if you're not working together as a team. And how effective you are depends on your communication and your awareness and how much you're moving together and listening to each other and finding that flow. And so part of your work here is that you are a team of teams. You are a team as a commission, right? And you work with a team that's led by your manager. And so this little graphic here from ICMA starts to talk about how you are mutually dependent upon each other as in a highly effective team, but you're also dependent on your manager to be that bridge to your staff and for him to lead that team effectively so that you all can do the work together as a community. So what is a highly effective board? So there's a lot of words on the slide. I'm happy to send you the original article. But what you see here is basically a summary of an article that was written probably about 15 years ago by the Institute for Local Government that talks about, in our age of complexity with local governments, how do we understand when we're acting effectively as leaders and working together? So a couple things you see here on the screen, the sense of team, clear roles and responsibilities within that team, having and honoring a relationship with each other, having an effective process, deliberative process to make decisions, holding yourselves accountable, and then having continuous learning as an elected body. So those were 6 principles from this organization. Another fantastic source is our ICMA, our International City and County Managers Association. This was their 10 habits of a highly effective council, which at this point is also about a decade old. But you can see those here. Think and act strategically. Have clear roles and relationships, which was similar from the previous one. Having a great council staff partnership, using your time and energy appropriately, right? Good meeting management, good process. And again, practicing continuous personal learning. So we've kind of synthesized these two professional sources into what we like to talk about in the region as common elements of a highly effective board. So when we go out and do these retreats in other communities, we really emphasize these 6 principles as a good starting point for how to think about being effective and making good deliberative decisions together. So understand, develop, and demonstrate respect and teamwork. If there's no respect in the room, then you can't listen to each other and make good decisions. Establish that effective relationship with your staff. Understand and adhere to clear roles and responsibilities. Execute a disciplined and deliberative decision-making process. So is it clear and legible to your community how you arrived at certain decisions? Conducting effective meetings and using your time appropriately, and again, going back to continuous learning. We'll talk about this later today, but the issues that we face as a region and as a community are highly interdependent and complex. These are things that, are wicked problems in many certain circumstances. So the more you can educate yourselves and focus on learning from each other, learning from peers, and learning from resources in the region and in the state and nationally, the better your decisions will be. So lifting this up for you just as food for thought as we start this process and as you continue your journeys as elected officials. But as we go throughout the day today, we want to think about how are we activating and trying to be a highly effective deliberative board. These are things that we think are really important to getting to this outcome. The first is awareness and appreciation of each other, and we're going to really spend some time on that in a second. Then we get into communication, which helps collaboration, accountability, and trust. So these 6 things working together can really help drive an organization and drive a board towards being highly effective in your work. We're going to start really by focusing in on this idea of valuing your uniqueness as individuals and as leaders and elected officials for this community. This is a mosaic that you see here. Mosaic tiles can stand on their own, right? You can have one little individual tile that can be very beautiful. But when you put tiles together into a mosaic design, it represents something else. And so what we're trying to do in this next section is think about how you all as individuals come together and lean on your strengths and find those shared areas of appreciation, and then also understand and appreciate your differences. Because when you were doing your opening icebreaker and sharing out, you all are individual people that think and act and process information differently. And having some awareness of that fact will actually help you make better decisions. So when uniqueness is valued, when you can say, oh, you're a very logical and analytical person, and I'm a very emotional, sensitive person. How can your strengths as logic help me understand where you're coming from a different perspective? And how can you use my strengths in sort of emotion and sensitivity to help you make better decisions? So when it's valued and harnessed, it can unlock these things, right? Greater productivity, a sense of belonging, greater innovation. But when it's not working, right, when the fact that, Scott, you're so analytical really annoys me and irritates me, and I can't stand to be in the same room with you, right, then I'm going to think of you as a problem. As I'm picking on you because I know you. So those interpersonal dynamics can create a problem, right? I don't want to be in a meeting with Scott because he's just going to make me look at numbers all day, and I want to know what the community says about an issue, right? So understanding and appreciating, well, I don't really get the numbers, but Scott does, and therefore maybe I can learn from him. And so that's where really we're trying to understand those uniqueness as assets rather than obstacles. And ultimately, if you're looking at difference as an obstacle, you're going to create those interpersonal dynamics that will ultimately make the boat not move in the direction that you need to. So what we're going to be doing today is going through a series of exercises and conversations to understand some of this awareness of your style and your preferences. And we're going to be focusing on a couple of core areas. This is loosely based on MBTI, Myers-Briggs framework, if anyone has done that before. But it's adapted for the context of local governments and governing boards. So if you know your letters, fantastic. If you don't worry. We're going to be talking about how to develop awareness and understanding, and then most importantly, communicating what you need to be successful. That's at the end of the day, or at the end of this particular session of the agenda before lunch. We're going to help you identify and articulate to each other what you need to be successful in your role based on your style preferences. That's where we're getting to. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. Kasha, if I could tag you in. Kasha is gonna hand out a quick little assessment tool. We're gonna focus on 4 elements of style. The first is energy, how you engage with others. The second is information, which is how you process information, okay? The third is how you make decisions. And the last is how you structure your life and your work. So the first sheet of this paper is essentially those 4 questions. You have a scale of 1 to 7. And so you're gonna review the question and rate yourself based on how you typically behave, right? So it's unscientific, but this is just for the purposes of discussion today, right? So are you typically more introverted or extroverted, meaning how you draw your energy from being with others or being by yourself? And then the second 2 pages are a little bit more of a deeper dive into these questions. I'd like you to do those pages and then go back to the first sheet and think about, if I answered the first 3 questions on energy and engagement subdimensions, is my question around energy, do I need to relook at that? Or did I learn something about myself when I dug a little bit deeper that I might want to change my rating? So page 1 first, pages 2 and 3 second, and then go back and just revisit your selections, okay? You're going to do that individually. We're going to give you a few minutes. Are those instructions clear to everybody? Okay. And if you guys want to do this too, you're welcome to. Use the microphone. Okay. I'm getting the thumbs up from the room. Balanced teams make space for both, right? So when you have, in the second column over here, team dynamic challenges, sometimes extroverts can dominate the conversation, right? Because they're so energized by being in the mix, right? Introverts might struggle to interject in that particular situation. How this relates to elected boards. So your extroverts are gonna be on the dais and commenting, raising their hand, interjecting, helping to surface issues quickly. Introverts might need more of an invitation to participate or might need a little bit more time to come to conclusion. So what is your dynamic, maybe sharing from your own DOT perspective from an introvert and an extrovert standpoint when it comes to how it works as an elected official and in your role? How are you feeling? Energized by others, needing more time to engage? John, you look like you want to jump in.
Actually, Richard said it earlier about, well, maybe it was just in the discussion between he and I, but all of us are reluctant leaders, I think. And that might be a good way to explain. I think you can.
We never planned to.
I don't think any of us have the overriding need to run for office. We saw a need, and we were looking for people. They're looking for people to help. And so based on a need, voters, our neighbors, people we interact with in the town, they weren't being heard. There was a need there for people to be heard, and we felt like that was something that I think all of us can identify with that. So that's why I think you see a lot of the numbers kind of centered in the middle on that one.
Yeah. Well, this one right here.
Or, yeah.
This one right here. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Building on that, when it's commission meeting day, are you all energized and ready to get in here? Or is it like, oh God, I gotta gear up. Gotta get, what's the feeling?
everybody's got a balance, really. I think we're all excited to do the people's work. I might be speaking for myself, but I'm pretty sure you vocalize that as well. We're excited to do the work of the people, but we don't have the need to be center stage.
Do you want to jump in?
Yeah.
I would just like to point out that the extrovert was the first to pick up the mic.
Situational awareness. I love that. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so I think John hit the nail on the head. I don't think any of us need to be center stage. We all bring our strengths. Some of us are more analytical. For me, I like being out in the community. I like being at the veterans coffees like we were this morning and talking to people. And I think, for me, that brings a different perspective to the board, because when people don't feel heard, they'll see me because I'm out so much and they'll express something that I wouldn't have thought was a problem.
Yeah.
Right? Being on that end. And I think that's important to get out there and understand what the person who's battling the traffic or getting to the schools or going to the grocery store and not being able to make a left at a Food Lion and all those things. And when we're making these decisions just based on the facts, you can lose sight of that.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, and I'm happy that I think we have that balance right now.
So those moments where you get to engage with the community are very energizing to you. It fuels your work. Yes. Awesome. Did you want to jump in?
Yeah. So I am a little bit more on the introvert side, not as far. Just floating around a 5. For me, I know that I have to prepare myself a little bit beforehand before a meeting. So I will take time to prepare and do a little more research. Also go hand in hand with being new.
Yeah.
But at the same time, too, I appreciate getting out there, hearing what the residents' perspectives are. But for me, I'm an operations person. I'm in trucking and logistics for my background. And so finding everything and grounding it in facts are the most important portion of what I hold, essentially. Excuse me. What I hold and are an important value for me is fact-finding and logic. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's a little bit of how I go about perceiving and thinking things. I know I have to prepare a little bit more beforehand, but at the same time, I also appreciate when gathering that information, tabling things or continuing things for reflection. Sometimes we have to get things in a meeting on the fly, and sometimes that might lead to a moment where additional time might be needed.
Yeah.
That's a little bit my personality.
So acknowledging and your colleagues' awareness that you gotta prepare, you gotta get ready to step into this room, kind of get yourself
Grounded
and ready to go.
Putting on a new set of lenses, essentially transitioning to essentially, just as we have different lenses for governance, it's kind of putting on a different lens for me of, okay, I'm transitioning into this governance role. I'm switching from my business role or my dad or husband role or whatever it may be. And so that's the way I a little bit operate. And sometimes I take a little bit more time to research and prepare in advance. So
you mentioned the information. So let's move to this next one, because I think that's a really important one. So this is your second sheet. Oops. Talking about information. So how you access and gather information. You all are pretty, there. So when you have a lot of sensors, right, focusing on facts, data, things that you can observe versus the intuitive side, which is more about patterns, big ideas, future outcomes, right? So on the sensing side, and looking at this first table on how that impacts team dynamics, your sensors can help people stay grounded, right? We're not in the clouds talking about like what might happen in 50 years. We're here in the moment, and we're present, and we're kind of connecting into this data. On the other side, your intuitive folks are looking out for that bigger picture, right? They're saying, if this could happen, we need to be prepared for it. How can we be agile and be resilient? So having a balance of both, I think, is really important. If you're too sensing heavy, if you're too facts heavy, you might be missing out on some of these bigger ideas. If you're too intuition heavy as a board, you're all, looking out into the future, and you're not focused on what's happening in the present, right? So that balance of both. Looks like you've got I think it's four in the middle here, which is great, right? Because you're able to see that on both sides. In terms of how this might help in terms of your governance, sensing heavy boards can be really focused at incremental improvement, right? So we're just kind of moving forward in the steps. Intuition heavy boards really excel at strategic planning. So what I see in these results with having a healthy middle is that you all are capable of doing both, and you value both, right? You want to know what the bigger picture is, what the priorities are, but you want that to be informed by facts. Is that sort of a good summary of where you currently are?
Very much so. I feel like it is the exact summary of the dynamic I feel like we have. We can all daydream a little bit and making sure that those daydreams are grounded in facts and essentially have good guardrails, I think are important pieces that I think that's why I think so many people are at 4. We balance that daily already, I believe.
Does any conflict come up?
I think there's some self-awareness with that as well. Speaking for myself, I think sometimes I tend towards the idealism more than the facts, but I'm conscious of that in myself, and so then I make a conscious effort to be more fact-based.
That's great. How else does it show up? Has there been a particular issue that you've dealt with recently where this balance of the kind of bigger picture and the on-the-ground data has come up? Has that caused any conflict or healthy debate amongst the group?
Well, we haven't had too many meetings together to have that
Okay.
happen, but I know that when Dan was on the planning board and I had some questions, and it's definitely more analytical when it comes to that stuff. And I'd say, yes, but, I talked to so-and-so, and this is what's really happening. So I try to bring that, maybe not emotional, but that people perspective to what the plans are, right? Because I'm a teacher, so when I was learning how to be a teacher, the professors had a lot of great ideas on what a classroom should look like, but then you get in the classroom like, whoa, we cannot do that, right? Then you add the people perspective in there, and it changes the whole analytical, this is what should happen, but this is what's really happening.
Right. So, yeah. And we can segue to the thinking and feeling. Any other comments or reflections on how this shows up in your deliberations and discussions as a group?
Oh, no, I was just going to say about Susanna. She talks to the people closest to the issue, always finds the people that are directly affected. And when we talk about, making decisions based off of what we learn from other people, it's important to talk to the people who actually know the most about it. A lot of times, there's people in the town that will say things, and they're not exactly sure what they're saying sometimes, and they don't know the issue. But Sue always finds the people that are closest to the issue, actually gets the best answer out of those folks. So it's really important to have that skill.
Yeah. And your results here are very interesting too, because it seems on the thinking versus feeling spectrum, which is our next one on how you're processing and making decisions, pretty logic heavy in this group, right? Do you feel that your feeling perspective is appreciated amongst the group? Do you feel like you have to fight to share that, or is that pretty easy to share and people know you're kind of like the go-to for that?
Well, yeah, I think, like I said, we all have our strengths, and I'm pretty logical myself in making big decisions, and I'm organized, so I don't lose sight of that. But I think you really can't make decisions in isolation, right? And you have to look at the whole picture. And so I don't have a problem stating that and giving my opinion, and it's respected. So that's all you can ask for.
That's good. That's great. So some other potential dynamics when it comes to thinking and feeling, thinkers could see feelers as overly emotional or subjective, right? So how do you know you're talking to the right people versus just some people who have your ear, which in public life I think can be very challenging. And then feelers might see thinkers as insensitive or detached from the community, right? So I think in the public service setting, this one is really tricky, right? Because you serve at the pleasure of the people who elected you. So having a balance of both in your decision making, in your engagement becomes really important as you wear this hat for this particular responsibility that you have. So thinking about how you can, lean into the strengths of the feeling perspective, to emphasize fairness and outcomes in your decision making as you're weighing the factual and logical process of the decisions that are in front of you. So that can be a challenge to, if you tend to skew a little bit more on the thinking side, how can you tap into the resources that you have access to, the people you have access to make sure that you're thinking about these other elements of the decision. In terms of governance implications on the back side of the sheet, thinking heavy boards tend to really excel at budgeting and contract reviews and procedural integrity, and feeling heavy boards tend to excel at constituent engagement and coalition building. One of the main points that we see of conflict between the council manager form of government is when you have very thinking heavy boards trying to get into the operational details of how the town is run. So your manager here and is the captain of that team, right? And you all are leading, your mayor is the captain of this team. So thinking about how to tap into your need to shape priority and your responsibility to shape priority and the direction of the commission without getting into the pen color and the type of gravel in the road, right? So that's the manager's job. And you all are thinking about, well, where are we putting that new road in, and how much are we spending as a commission on these various things of supply? So that's where we see in some organizations a tension between real heavy thinking boards that really want to get into the details, and that might not be their responsibility in this role. Does that come up at all for you guys? Do you feel yourself going there just by nature?
This town, in its history, historically speaking, it hasn't been council manager for all that long. And it's grown so fast that I think there was a culture that leaned more towards the mayor-council model, where the elected officials are in the weeds, and more connected with staff. And I think actually that's something that our new town manager, Scott, has been really good at helping us to move beyond. And yeah, we probably, as the thinking people, maybe we tend towards more getting in the weeds, but I think we all aspire to step back as well and let Scott do his job, Yeah.
It's a tough balance, yeah.
To Commissioner Don's point, we can't govern, we can't do our job if we're somewhere we don't need to be. So we have to trust our subject matter experts. And I'm new, first term, so really going on 2 months, and I've had interactions with Scott already. And listening to what his processes are, it's reassuring. We can't do that. We have to be able to delegate, and the old firm is trust and verify in the private sector. But we've had a really good start so far. So we can do our job. We can take on what we're accountable for, and let the staff do the work.
Yeah.
So it's been a really nice start so far.
And I know for myself, whenever I have a question, I've been able to go to staff or Scott or Barbie and get the answers. And sometimes it's just a matter of educating the public or communicating to the public why something can't be done. And I think, there have been times in the past where that was not being done effectively, and so then that causes bad feelings and mistrust. So I think if communication is always key in any job, and in any family, really. And so if we can get the message out and explain our process, our way of thinking, you'll have less people feeling like something's going on that's really not. And so I think that our job is really to be here and communicate to staff and to Scott, like, this is what we've been hearing, and this is what we would like. Is it possible? How, if it's not possible now, can it be possible? And how do we make that happen? What avenues can we take? And then we can communicate that and explain it. And then I think that quells everybody's fear out there.
One last thing. So you just reminded me of something. Scott, when we first met, it was very, very refreshing that, what is your vision? What are you guys looking to do? And let's see how we get there, versus a silo. We're not listening, which I really appreciated, because this is new to me, coming from a private sector into this position. We need to lean on our subject matter experts, and he was very open about that, which I appreciated.
Yeah. Well, and you all have a very challenging role, not only being in the public eye and being an elected official, but you have to make that shift between the work that you do on the day-to-day, which might be very in the weeds, operational. You might be leading teams and taking all these strengths and applying it to your business or to your home life, wherever that might be. And then you got to come into this role in this organization, you know, a couple times a month or a couple times a week, whatever that frequency looks like, and you got to put on another hat. And that's hard. And that takes some mindfulness to make that shift and to not necessarily carry forward all of the things that you did in those other situations, but still bring your strengths, right? The last one we have is around kind of organizational, how sort of framed as how you work style or how you see the world. This is really about, are you pressure prompted and comfortable with change, or are you more focused on a plan, sort of organization? This is the last one on judging and perceiving in your packet. So judgers are very planful, right? They like their structure. They like their agenda packet. They like walking through a very disciplined process. And perceivers are a little bit more spontaneous. They want to go with the flow. They want to be flexible. So this can show up in team dynamics around, you know, judgers might perceive perceivers as being more spontaneous and unpredictable, which can be challenging in government circumstances when you're trying to use a transparent process to make decisions. And then perceivers can look at judgers and say, oh, you're very just rigid, right? It's an A to Z process, and if someone, you know, throws a public hearing into the mix and, you know, you learn all this new information, you're not adaptable, right? So that can come up in team dynamics. But there are strengths that you can lean into each other. I put this down without actually seeing. So you've got 3 more on the flexible perceiving side and a few in the middle. So how does this show up in how you make decisions and work together as a group, given how process-oriented government is? So maybe someone more on the flexible, adaptable side. How does that resonate with you as you do this work?
I'm more in the middle on that one, but I think that I like to be organized. I like to have a plan. I like to know the direction. But again, being a teacher, you kind of have to pivot, right? And you have to be able to be flexible, and I can be flexible if I have a general direction. And then I can find the gray area there, because it's really nothing's really black and white.
Right.
But so far, I think, you know, from the couple of years we've worked together, I think that's been working out, and I'm hopeful it will continue.
So not throwing out the process for the sake of new information, but just how do you adapt within it to get to where you need to go?
Yeah, because I think a lot of the flexibility stems from the need to go through things and discuss things and be open about our discussions. So that's why I personally like to encourage the flexibility, and we're going to talk this through a little bit, and if that discussion goes a different direction, so be it. And, you know, that's the organic nature of it, to kind of get to a better solution. So I think the open collaborative nature sort of necessitates a little bit more flexibility.
Is your work session format helping in that structure? Is that helping to
That's the
encourage
goal,
that?
exactly. And just to echo what Commissioner Wedger just said, 100%. And it puts it more into an environment that I'm used to, which is brainstorming. And the idea that you've got a problem, you need a solution, let's throw everything out there, we'll see what sticks. No idea is a bad idea. Just get it out on the table, because I don't know how many times a terrible idea that wouldn't work in a million years sparks a great idea that's going to be the best thing moving forward. So that's kind of the culture I'm used to, and that's the goal with the work sessions, is to sort of create that spontaneity and that kind of culture where great ideas can percolate from there.
Is that for the new folks, is that a comfortable process for you, or does that feel a little uncertain?
Well, I'll speak for myself. That's a comfortable process for me. I am okay with essentially following the patterns wherever the conversation kind of leads sometimes. And sometimes following and essentially and going down those longer conversations where we can game out and theorize a little bit, you get a chance to also pressure test those with your peers. Mm-hmm. And so it's definitely opened, essentially, even though we haven't done it a lot, it's definitely an open and welcoming form of conversation to say, hey, what about this? Can we talk about that? As we start getting into those pieces that we need to. But again, still very new. Less than 6 meetings total. And forgive me for missing one. Thank you for your aid. But
you were clearly busy.
I was. That was a definitely timing conflict. But so definitely the flexibility side essentially speaks to me. I normally prefer being a more adaptable, can go with the flow essentially at times, but yet still kind of willing to be out there and have a framework of a structure to be our guardrails.
Yeah, I think just to echo and kind of amplify one of the key words you said is the stress testing, because I think that's what the brainstorming session's all about. And I don't know how many times I've thought of something and thought it was brilliant, and then you put it out to the group, and the larger group takes a look at it, and they're able to look at my ideas dispassionately. I can look at their ideas dispassionately, and then we can point out the things that our passion and our exuberance might prevent us from seeing. And that allows us, as that group dynamic grows, it allows us to stress test our ideas and make sure the ideas come out, more fully baked than just something that, okay, the dictator said do it, so we're going to do it. But no, let's vet this out a little bit. Let's talk it through and make it work.
Yeah, the adaptability and spontaneity is needed as sort of an exploration, but we can't just wander around forever. Eventually we have to button things down and make a decision. So that's the balance that we need. Mm-hmm.
I'm probably more of a 2, but I put a 3 just to keep the peace. I love collaboration, though. Collaboration keeps everybody vested. You don't chase people away when people feel like they're a part of the solution. And just this group, I've heard things that I didn't consider before as I go and have dinner somewhere or lunch by myself, and I'm eating and I'm enjoying myself as I go through processes. That's my happy place. And then you come in with this rigid idea that you have all the answers, and then you hear somebody come out with a collaborative spirit and say something, and it brings you back. So I love the collaboration that we've had so far.
So to Commissioner Don's point, how do you get to the what's next in your work sessions? How do you structure those so that you leverage the collaboration and the brainstorming, but move towards here's how we're going to make a decision or set a direction? What has that looked like so far?
Yeah, I think the key is to let everybody have a chance to speak, and then once everybody's spoken, the final ideas start to cultivate out of that, and then everybody then gets to address that final idea. We had some ideas coming out of a closed session the other day, and even the discussion about the park, for instance, the skate park discussion, I thought was an awesome discussion. And it was clear that everybody took time and effort to express their ideas, to express their main concerns. And I think once we were able to go around the table and everybody felt like they had a chance to speak and any points and counterpoints were made, we were able to kind of wrap that up. And I think, that's I feel like it's a little bit my job to kind of, okay, let's pull this in. Everybody's talked. And I think that's where, as a group dynamic, we need to continue to operate and play in that realm of let everybody speak. Let's come up with the final solution, counterpoint the final solution, and then agree now is the time to make the decision. Yeah. Luckily it hasn't been that long, but it's worked out really well so far, and I hope it only continues. But I think the main thing is to everybody get a chance, and then no one grandstanding. Nobody sit there saying, okay, my idea is not winning the day, but I'm digging in. This is my idea, and this is what it has to be. We haven't gotten to that, and I don't think it will. These all seem like very reasonable people, and I think that's what really is what it's dependent on, is everybody being reasonable about things and accepting the fact that they're part of a team. And I think cultivating the teamwork and the team mentality of the whole thing is key in letting folks express their ideas, do the point counterpoint, stress test the ideas, vet out the best solution, and then finally come to an agreement.
And then after the decision, whatever the decision might be, how do you move forward knowing I might not have, quote unquote, won that round, right? But the decision was made by the body, right? And respecting that decision and being able to move forward. We see a lot of councils, commissions get stuck up to the point of decision. This decision happens, and then it becomes, well, I didn't agree with that. And I went on Facebook and I told all my people why I didn't vote for it, right? So thinking through how, when you get to a sticky issue and you've had a deliberative, transparent process where everyone's voice had the opportunity to be heard, and then you came to a decision, how you move beyond the decision to continue to have that collaborative teamwork spirit. That's really important.
So you mentioned the R word, but I'm going to mention the A word.
What was the R word?
You said respect.
Oh, respect.
So, and it's probably not the A word everyone's thinking. So I'm just thinking, again, I've worked in teams my whole career, and engineers are creative, thoughtful people. They seem analytical, but they can be very passionate as well, especially when it's an idea that they thought would really, really work. But the key is that everyone is a respectful adult. And if you're working in a group of respectful adults, then wasn't my decision, didn't necessarily agree with it, but I'm going to support it because it was the team decision, it was the group decision. And that requires respectful adults. And I think that that's where we need to focus our energies. And at the end of the day, all agree we're going to be respectful adults.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all need to sort of think outside of our own bubble. One of the things that we opened this board up with was the sentiment that we can do important work if we do not become self-important, right? So as long as everybody has that base of humility and listening to others, then we can really function as a group.
Yeah, those are great thoughts. So what we want to invite you to do as we kind of close out this part of the conversation, you all are a new team, right? Oops. Ooh, wait. You're a new team. Anytime you've got new dynamics, you basically start over, right? You're forming that team again. Even though you guys have worked together and have a strong dynamic, you all are new, and so you're finding your feet together, right? And a really important part of that is taking a moment to understand, what do you need to be successful? Thinking about your own strengths, how you make decisions, where you draw your energy, how you organize your thoughts, the categories that we just talked about here. When you're in this group, being able to articulate what you need to be successful becomes very important, because it gets to respect, right? I need very clear information ahead of the meeting so that I can process it and come to the conversation ready to brainstorm, would be an example. So in other words, Scott, I'm going to pick on you again. If that's what I need, Scott giving me something 15 minutes before the meeting is not going to be helpful to me, right? So it might mean I need people to show up to meetings ready to brainstorm and ready to respect the ideas of others. So it's just taking a moment to think about, these are the rules that I have on how I want to show up in this team. So Kasha's going to pass out a worksheet. The other side to that is, what can you give your teammates? I can give you my listening skills or my ability to tap into the empathy of the community, right? What strengths do you have that you can bring to this team? So we just want to invite you to kind of reflect on those two questions to kind of close this out. And it's your commitment to each other, your commitment to building this highly effective team is being able to articulate these things to yourself and then share them with each other. So we're going to give a few minutes for you to do that. What you need is on the first side of the sheet. What you can offer others is on the back side of the sheet.
One or two bullet points, maybe? Pleasure.
It could be a faith leader. It could be,
Right.
who do you need in your coaching team, right? Isn't that what they say now? You have to have a coaching team around you to kind of get you through life.
Right, everybody's got their
You
own
know?
life coaches.
Yeah, well, not a
I know.
literal one, but you need your pep
Exactly.
squad.
I'm
You
not
need
there
to-
yet in my life.
Who's going to tell you the truth? Who's going to tell you not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear?
All right, we're gonna do a little
This is
sharing
just
out.
for you. Yeah. It's just like a journal. It's journaling.
So let's start with, let's start with this, not with the solves. Flip the script a little bit. So flip your sheets over, and we're gonna start with what you can offer others. Spirit of teamwork, going off what the mayor talked about. So what of your strengths are you offering this team? Who wants to go first? Jump in, yes.
I'll start up.
Please.
Start up generically and go into that. The simple one is just be an honest ear with honest feedback. We're a board, we make decisions collectively. It's a majority, so being able to people feel they can approach you and give you a scenario, and they're going to get an honest answer back so they can assess and make a decision based on your honest assessment and not just telling them what they want to hear.
All right. Go arounds. Jump in.
We'll bounce about. So I said patience, listening, and courage. So basically, it's the patience to listen, really. The patience to take the time to understand things. And the willingness to take it all in, the patience to take it all in. And then, of course, the listening to everybody's opinions, listening to everyone's arguments, and then listening to everybody's ideas, trying to come up with what's good and what's better. And then courage. And I think as the facilitator of the board meeting, I think I need to have the courage to stand up and say, okay, we're clearly not productive anymore. We're kind of going round. I think there's those times when that happens. And then sort of the courage to ask harder questions and to ask questions altogether, either from board members or staff. So that's why I said patience, listening, and courage.
We're sharing what we're giving others.
Okay.
And you're, no pressure, we're going around, whoever wants to go next.
Experience, I guess, with the board, I can offer to my fellow board members. Been on it for a couple of years now, and they're just coming in new, and so I have it in my head, all of the things that have gone on for the last couple of years, and although they've been paying attention, but it's a little different when you're in it as well. So.
Experience, perspective, great. What can I offer? Yes.
So I would say provide the people's perspective from the community aspect, and communicate that to the board and to Scott and to staff, and then listen, and then educate the public on why we're doing something, why it hasn't been done, and the realities around, why we still don't have a roundabout at Newtown and Cuthbertson. That was supposed to come when my daughter was in 3rd grade, and now she's a sophomore in college, so we're still waiting.
A skill that I think I can bring, I don't think I had to use it yet because we've had really robust and respectful conversations, but at my regular job, pushing conversations beyond their immediate constraints, I saw quality in there that I think that describes me when I'm in meetings at work, and you get people talking in generalities, and they're circling the issue, and they're really not zeroing in on it. And so a lot of times just by speaking specifics, you're able to direct that conversation away from, the 30,000 foot look or whatever. And sometimes that's, it's productive, but you can talk about it way too much. And so being able to help people focus, I hope I can use that. We're all pretty good about getting to the issue pretty quickly. So, and another thing is probably listening and taking emotions out of contentious issues. That's something else at work I seem to do maybe more than others that I work with. So.
That's great. In the heat of the moment, that can be very helpful, right? It's just, this is the decision, this was the process that we came to the decision, and we're kind of leaving it at the door.
So one of the things that I've continually offered is essentially just a wanting to inquire and learn not just about the process, but a little bit of inquiring about, okay, we got to a certain point, we're here, and where can we inquire to go next at times, but also keeping it as grounded in logic and what are the facts available, because sometimes like Sue excels at the human facts, the human input. Sometimes there's a geographical restraint. One of the things that I would say I could offer to this team is essentially I enjoy maps. I'm not a map expert, but I will do my research in the GIS. Is one of those things that I find to just it is a place of exploration and what can be and what is not. And sometimes as we've learned about paper streets as of lately, paper streets there's a reason why they never became a real street. And so it's one of those things that just what I offer is I just trying to bring a sense of logic and as balance to the best, but yet also a place of inquiry.
Curiosity.
Yes.
Great. Any other?
Well, I just wrote from, this is sort of nuts and bolts stuff, but like from manager and staff, they provide accurate, relevant information regarding the decisions. And then from the public, we need community feedback, public comments at meetings.
Information processing, I had a conversation with Scott the other day, and it really helps being new on the board, like how to organize your thoughts and prioritize the decision inputs. So I feel like, he's already helped. I'm sure I'm going to lean on him more about stuff like that. And actually, Daniel's really good about that as well. Yeah, so.
Information, like everyone else has said, current information, right? Because that changes from sometimes day to day, right? Certainly from year to year. And then the ability to communicate the outcomes and how to do that effectively. And sometimes what can we say? What can't we say? We don't want to inflame anything, but we want to be transparent. So how do we do that without making a situation worse?
Let's talk about that one a little bit. That's kind of interesting. So,
I was going to lean on you for that.
Well, and then I'm going to lean on Matt when we need it.
so what would be? Paint me a picture of. Is there a gap there currently? No, it's just what you need moving forward.
It's just in general what I think, as a town, when when we have big developments coming online, or when there's been a decision that has been made that, for example, this happened recently. We sold a property that was part of our parking, and when we made that decision, I don't know that we had all the information and the options, and so it became a nightmare because the parking lot got closed, there was a gap, and so we did not communicate that well ahead of it, and we didn't communicate it. We tried to communicate it after the fact, but being reactive is never great. So then I went into a few of the businesses and tried to explain it. This is what happened. I'm sorry, made a mistake. They appreciated it. Didn't make it much better at the time, but at least I can walk into the businesses now and they're not totally mad at me. But you don't know what to say in that moment, and so I think now we're in a better position to communicate those efforts. If there's a mistake, be honest about it. It was a mistake, because you can't lie about it, right? Just face it.
So making sure that you all have all the information that you need to make the decision, and then coming out of the decision, what are the salient talking points to be able to communicate consistently on behalf of the town. That's kind of what I'm hearing.
And along those lines, it also has to do with the impact of the decision. Option A will result in, option B will result in, and it's things like that I think need to be included in a lot of the presentations information that we get.
Okay.
Is what is the real ramification of this decision? What are the budget impacts of this decision, both short-term and long-term? And I thought that was a great part of our discussion around the Safe Streets for All work that we were doing this last work session, and how you can sign up for all these grants, and then, oh, by the way, you'll be on the hook for this much money over this time, and that's yearly. It's this amount.
The matching funds.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
okay.
the idea that we have to come up with matching funds and what the yearly responsibility would be for that. So that's the kind of information that I think that's especially useful and helpful in making a good informed decision because we have other jobs, we do other stuff, but we do come here knowing that our decisions have an impact. And I think understanding that impact makes the decision, I don't want to say easier, but it at least gives us the tools to communicate with the people. And so we can share with them the ramifications as well, why we made a decision and why the decision was justifiable. Because the worst thing, I think, is to go before the public, either an individual just accosting you at the grocery store, or if you're in a group setting somewhere, just to have to answer a question and not really being able to explain what would have happened had you made a different decision. Because I think that there are significant impacts to a lot of the decisions we make, and understanding those impacts would be helpful.
So what I'm hearing from you, Mayor, is that when decision points or options are presented to the board, you all want a clear statement of the option and an explication of what the impacts of making that choice would be. Let's pull that string a little bit more. What else? Like, if we're thinking about like clear and consistent information that you would get to tee up and help those decisions, is it fiscal impact? Is it community impact? Like, what would that look like? What would be most helpful?
I guess it depends on the topic,
Sure.
right? But so for me, when I came on the board, we do surveys, public surveys. What do you want to see in town? What are the things that you need? So, for example, one of the items the people would like to see is a dog park, and the sticker price is $825,000 for a dog park, right? But what are the rest of the costs? That's an initial cost. So what will it cost in staff? What will it cost in insurance? What will it cost in upkeep over the next 5 years, so that we can make an informed decision on whether or not that's something that they really want, and perhaps put that in the survey? Because I think that when my kids want a lot, but when they have to figure out how they're going to pay for what they want to,
Yeah.
sometimes their top 5 list changes, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to be making the decision on something like that without the public knowing how much the real costs are.
Would that be helpful to others? Not just the capital costs, the outlay, but the operating part of it as well, if it's that type of project?
Yeah, because a lot of people think, oh, a dog park is just grass. It's grass and a fence.
Right.
But it's really not just grass and a fence.
No, I would echo very much that sentiment of the, there's always, and I think that's a little bit of what we're supposed to do here as members of the board, is hash out a little bit in that conversation pieces in the work sessions. What are the second order effects? Sometimes there's even a third order effect of what a decision may or may not equate to, and we're setting up too, and I know I take this philosophy very much to heart. Those pieces that we put into place aren't there just for 4 or 5 years. We're talking 20, 50 years. This building will be here for 30 years plus. And so we understand that when we're setting those cornerstones in some of these decision-making pieces, we're making a 50-year determination of what will be, and so we're trying to weigh those out to its whole, to the best of our ability, based off of essentially our governance of Chapter 160D sometimes. So I know that is one of my perspectives is I think we all understand, there's limited resources in certain aspects, and those once essentially it's built on or not built on, or budgetary purposes. We were on the hook for a note now for 20 years for whatever it may be, whether it's equipment for our police department or equipment for our public service team or equipment for this building. We understand that and making sure that those are mapped out within the web of essentially and in a meaningful way so we can digest them and then communicate them.
Yeah. For anyone else that had information as something that you need on your list, is there anything else we haven't flagged that would be helpful inputs into your decision making that you'd want to surface? Okay. Anyone else want to share a new idea? What you need to be successful?
Oh, I was just going to say, and I'm not sure how applicable it is right at this second, but we had a cost to serve study presentation, and the numbers are like really necessary to have for future decision making, but not to get so married to the analytics of those numbers, because what gets developed in this town, whether it's commercial or residential, it has a real tangible impact on quality of life for our residents. And that's something that's sometimes hard to measure unless you go out to Providence Road at 4:30 and 5:30 p.m., you can tangibly measure quality of life decline that people are experiencing. So those numbers are great to have, that information, but you also have to have a sense of what people are struggling with day to day, and having that human that human impact knowledge. It's something that I think all of us really strive to gain and excel at, being able to communicate to the people that ask us questions, like on the campaign trail. I mean, I can say that we all do a pretty good job of that, but just not to get bogged down in the numbers and the facts. Then you have to have that human impact.
So a balance of perspectives as your team is bringing full total costs, also maybe linking it to survey results or linking it to your comp plan or guiding documents or priorities that you all have set.
I'll very much so. Mindful of the surveys. Surveys are a useful tool, but I think in our recent survey, we can also make sure that we're weighting it appropriately, and making sure that these are positive priorities. But how many people did participated? Was it out of our total populace that might have participated? I'm just picking a number: 10,000, 250 participated. So, how do we go about also weighting those mindfully, making sure that's when we're doing data driven, that we understand that, okay, this was a small sample. I think we're also working with sample sizes in our cost to serve analysis that correct, and how thoughtful the responses are. There are gaps sometimes in those surveys that we have to do our best to flesh out and hash out in between.
Awesome.
And that comes back, I think one of the things that we all want to do is in that service is mindfully absorb and communicate. And I think that's what we all are sitting here wanting to do, and that's what all really brought us to this table.
Great. All right. Any other thoughts? What you need to be successful that we haven't covered from your lists? Okay. Very good. Is our lunch here? Lunch is here. Wonderful. So we're going to take a lunch break until about 10 to 1, and then come back. Staff will join, and we're going to start with our afternoon program. Yeah.
Lunch.
That's a good suggestion.
Mike, thank you again for taking a peek at those photos. Appreciate it.
Oh, no worries, man. Anytime you need something, just give me a holler. I have my e-ops up all the time, and then I'll make a phone call if I have to. I know people all over the country. We work for a company for almost 40 years, everybody. Yeah. So I can say, hey, I need this done, get on it, who goes to the contact.
Well, it was one of those two things. Like, I cooked this lunch for y'all.
Yeah, I'm all over it.
One of those things where Dad's like, hey, I just need I can ask. Yeah. Let me ask.
Have you seen the video?
No, Bradley told me. I'm very excited. Somebody Facebook. Nobody can wave all of them. Especially.
Put me back on the plane. I'll take the train. I'll take the train. I mean, I'll take the train down or something. I'm not doing it.